Good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of HRAI, this is Scott Papp, Manager of Membership and Divisional Programs, and I would like to welcome you to today's Contractors AGM. After the AGM concludes, we will be hosting the Contractor Town Hall, so please make sure you stick around.
Thank you, Scott, and welcome everyone to the HRAI Contractors Division Annual General Meeting. My name is Robert Flipsy, your current chair of the Contractors Division. I am based in Vancouver, British Columbia as the Director of Mechanical Contracting for Ainsworth. The agenda for today's AGM is on the screen for your review. I would like to call the meeting to order at 1:37 p.m. I've confirmed that with those present today and the proxies we have received, we have constituted a quorum for the meeting. I would like to put forth a motion to approve the minutes of the August 26, 2019 Annual General Meeting. These were provided in advance of the AGM in the package you received. This has been moved by Dave Weishun and seconded by Ivor Bonnier. Please cast your votes. The vote will be open for 20 seconds. The vote will be closed in 5 seconds. Thank you for voting. Lumi is currently tabulating the results, and we should have the results in a few seconds. The vote carries. Now let's talk about the Contractors Division. It is a pleasure serving as the divisional chair for the last 2 years. An ongoing goal of the division was to increase membership in an effort to grow revenue for the division, but also to grow the influence of HRAI nationally as there are strengthened numbers. The division has been doing a great job for the past several years, but COVID-19 has put an abrupt end to all that back in March. Not only did growth suffer in terms of new members, there was and continues to be some uncertainty about whether members would renew. Although I'm pleased to report that we are almost at 100% of our budgeted renewal target for the division for 2020-2021, it should be noted that the target was purposely reduced due to the uncertainty of the impacts of COVID-19 on our member businesses. We hope to surpass the 100% mark for renewals. I encourage you to promote the HR brand through the use of HRAI member company decals on your vehicles, the member company logo on your website, and other marketing materials, and just word of mouth. Together, we can grow the division across Canada. With respect to programs, HRAI staff and the HRAI Contractors Board are continuously evaluating its current member advantage programs and assessing potential new ones. I recommend to you, the members, to look at some of these programs that are posted on the HRAI website. I'm confident you will find something to assist your business operation or save you money. Last year, I was pleased to report that we hosted more than 40 chapter and/or regional meetings. This year, as of March, we had hosted 26 such meetings, and with 2 canceled in March. In short, we were on our way to surpassing the previous year's number of chapter meetings, regional meetings, until COVID shut things down. We asked that the membership be patient with their chapters and offer to assist where possible. Chapters may require new ideas to offer value to the members, as the traditional breakfast, lunch, or dinner meetings may be put on hold for the foreseeable future. As you hear Dennis Kozina speak to engaging HRAI members has been a priority for HRR over the past few years, and is strongly supported by the Contractors Division. We will strive to work with the manufacturers and wholesalers divisions to engage members and to increase the satisfaction level of the members as measured by ongoing satisfaction surveys. This year, we are introducing a new town hall. This replaces the previous Democratic Assembly and allows for all contractors members to include topics of interest. We believe this is a step in the right direction in terms of both transparency and engagement. The town hall will take place immediately following the AGM. I encourage you, the members, to make an effort to get to know many of the staff members, as challenging as that may be during the unprecedented times. I would like to extend my appreciation to the Contractors Board and our many committee volunteers who contribute the dedicated time and intelligence to the betterment of your association. I will be taking on the role of HRAI Chair for 2020-2021 and wish you Your new incoming chair, Mr. Eric Foran, a Master Tech HVAC and Plumbing based in Halifax, all the best. I would also like to thank the staff of HRAI for all the work and support they've given you, the members, as well as the board of directors and myself as the chair. I would also like to thank you, our members, for the opportunity to serve as your chair for 2019-2020. Now, I'd like to introduce the chair of HRAI, Dennis Klazina, who has prepared a video for today. Let's watch.
Hello, my name is Dennis Kazina and I am the current chair of HRAI. I have been associated with HRAI for over 25 years, serving on various committees and acting as chair for both the CMPX and the Manufacturers Board of Directors. It's been mostly an enjoyable ride. I do have mixed emotions as I pass the torch to Rob Flipsy as your new incoming chair of HRAI. When I took the role of chair just over 1 year ago, I assumed to be a year filled with normal activities. I had a number of things that I was hoping to accomplish during my time as chair, including growing our national footprint and building stronger relationships with other like-minded associations in Canada. My first few months as chair were quite fruitful. We were able to create a substantial partnership with HRAI, and we built a federal government relations presence co-funded by HRAI. We entered into talks with other associations across the country. Transparency to members has been a focus over my term, and I am pleased to report that the culture at HRAI continues to nurture open dialogue between staff, volunteers, members, government, and other stakeholders. Just in this past year, many members were actively involved in meetings with government and on various committees. Currently, we're working to help solve training issues for field technicians in how to safely handle refrigerants that are flammable. Certainly, the strength of HRAI is in its membership. An engaged and active membership is crucial for the long-term success of our sector. One of the primary goals at HRAI is to effectively disseminate and deliver information about HRAI's initiatives and the industry as a whole on a timely basis. We have increased our social media presence and moved our newsletter to a weekly cycle. I am pleased to report these efforts are paying off as our communication effectiveness score continues to improve. I was also pleased to see HRAI adding new members. We were on track to grow both membership and revenues versus the prior year. More importantly, we were adding new members in all regions of the country. On the government relations front, we have focused our efforts with a 4-point plan. First, build the resources needed to be an effective voice for the HVACR industry with governments at the federal, provincial, and municipal level. Second, develop the capability of the association to engage both with the political and administrative channels of government across the country. Third, streamline the areas of focus for the association's government relations work to guide activities. And finally, ensure that HRAI members are more fully engaged in government relations work of the association. Sharing the workload and getting more members involved. We know that developing effective government relations is a marathon and not a sprint. Martin Limas will be speaking to you shortly to give you a deeper look into the work that he and his team have been engaged with. Before March of 2020, I felt my time as chair had been fruitful, and for the most part, non-eventful. In fact, most of the objectives we had set for the year have been either achieved or were well positioned to be accomplished by the end of the fiscal year. Then the pandemic became a reality. We were just 10 days away from CMPX 2020 when the full brunt of the virus was found to be active in Canada. CMPX was a sold-out event with over 800 booths. Plus, we expected to have approximately 15,000 people attend the show over the 3 days. By the time of the actual event, the province of Ontario was in a full-blown lockdown. This caused us at first to postpone and then to cancel the CMPX show and move the event to March 2022. I must admit, these were very interesting times for CMPX. I'd like to thank the CMPX committee, Sandy McLeod, the HRAI staff and board, along with Ralph Supa of CIPH and their board, in helping to navigate through these challenging times. The support of many of our key suppliers and exhibitors also helped make a difficult situation manageable. On the COVID-19 situation, more generally, the HRAI management team and the board acted very quickly to ensure that HRAI's viability in the longer term. We also positioned HRAI to be active with government during this new state of emergency. The strategy was rethought, meetings canceled, and costs were cut where it made sense to do so. The focus of the team was to ensure the HVACR industry in Canada was considered an essential service during the Canada-wide shutdown. It was partly due to the efforts of the government relations team at HRAI that our sector was allowed to continue to function throughout the pandemic. HRAI did not let the pandemic slow our efforts to serve you, our members. We do understand that to stay relevant in the longer term, HRAI must continue to build its value proposition on a national scale. While we deal with the new realities, this has meant that there will be fewer in-person meetings and large-scale events like CMPX and our annual conference, which both have been pushed out to later dates. We will utilize technology in order to continue to offer value to members. We were able to pivot quickly and offer much of our training curriculum via digital offerings. We have increased our use of social media to keep members informed and to have moved many of our meetings to a digital platform. These efforts seem to be effective in the unusual times we are experiencing, and it is the right thing to do. To be sure we're meeting your needs and to measure member satisfaction, we do survey 500 members every 3 months and have been doing this now for over 2 years. Our satisfaction levels continue to rise, and with this feedback, we understand that you want HRAI to be more active in all regions of the country with improved communications and better government relations at the regional level. We continue to make investments in communications, member outreach, as well as government relations. One of the concerns facing HRAI's board of directors during these unusual times is the financial viability of the association. Fortunately, our reserve situation is strong, and before the impact of COVID-19, we were trending to show year-over-year growth in membership and educational revenues. When coupled with the spending reductions put in place in March, it has allowed us to post a considerable surplus for our year, which ended this past June. Much of the financial pressure will continue into this coming year as we deal with softer than normal renewals and an educational curriculum that will enter the fall being 100% digitally delivered. We continue to monitor financials at HRAI as you would do in your own operations. We are confident that revenues will build slowly and our reserves will be replenished back to pre-pandemic levels over the next 2 years. Normally, our annual meeting is a 3-day event where we would hand out several awards to recognize volunteers who have contributed to the industry. This year, with no in-person meetings, we will be handling these awards virtually. Watch the newsletter, social media, and the HRAI website for these awards that will be given to active industry members. One award that I have the pleasure of announcing is the Merit Award. This is HRAI's Pinnacle Award. This award is given to an industry representative to recognize their outstanding contributions in the development and in the progress of HRAI and to the Canadian HVACR industry. The Merit Award this year goes to Dave Wyson of Blue Flame Heating and Air Conditioning. David has been a strong supporter of HVACR industry organizations, particularly HRAI. He started his involvement with HRAI with the Greater Toronto chapter, where he has served on the chapter executive for many years, including the position of chapter president. He also served on the HRAI Ontario Regional Council and the HRAI Contractors Board of Directors, and as chair of the HRAI Board of Directors. Currently, he is the past chair of the Contractors Board and serves on the HRAI Board of Directors as past chair. After my closing remarks, we will hear a few words from David. In closing, I am pleased to report that even with the big curveball called COVID-19 tossed into the mix during my tenure as chair, it's been a successful year. I feel lucky and I feel blessed to have a great board of directors and also a strong HRAI leadership team along with a dedicated staff. I would also like to thank those members who have stepped up and became more active during my tenure. I'd also like to thank my employer, Emerson, who has allowed me the time and supported me throughout my involvement with HRAI over the past 25 plus years. There is a saying that I thought was fitting when describing the significant challenges faced by our industry and HRAI over the past several months. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I know that HRAI will be stronger and will be better in the years ahead. I'm really pleased that we have been able to keep our focus on building stronger relationships with government at all levels, even during these difficult times. Our direction, our strategic plan is solid. HRAI is well positioned to meet the future challenges that our industry will encounter. Rob Flipsy is the current chair of the Contractors Board of Directors and is your new incoming HRAI chair. He is a native of British Columbia and a senior member of the Ainsworth Group of Companies. Rob will be communicating with members regularly in the coming months. I will stay on the board as past chair for 1 year to help assist Rob and the other board members in any way that I can. It's certainly been an interesting year to say the least. Thank you for your ongoing support.
Thank you, Dennis, for those kind words. When I was first informed of this great honor of being this year's recipient of the HRAI Merit Award, my first thought was that I was standing on the shoulders of giants. I could only have progressed and succeeded in this industry thanks to the amazing work of those dedicated leaders who have come before me. As I look through the names of those who have previously received this prestigious award, I am humbled and deeply respectful of this recognition. I've enjoyed my participation with HRAI at all levels of the organization, from chairing the Greater Toronto Area chapter to eventually chairing the association. It has been an incredibly fun and rewarding ride. I've always encouraged members to give back to this marvelous group and reap the benefits that come with volunteering your time and knowledge for the good of our industry and its customers. I want to thank the staff at HRAI who have been extremely supportive of me during my journey. Through my years on the contractor and HRAI boards, I have had the pleasure to work with a wonderful number of dedicated people from all walks of our industry, and I thank them for their contributions and assistance. I'm sorry that HRAI's annual flagship event needed to be switched to a virtual format this year. The unprecedented and terrible scourge of COVID-19 has changed all that we took for granted around us. I look forward to the time in the future when we can again all come together as colleagues and friends to celebrate the accomplishments of our industry. I am proud that HRAI and the many HVACR companies are playing a leading role in offering home comfort to people now isolated in their dwellings and implementing air quality solutions for commercial buildings to ensure a safe and healthy working environment. This isn't the end of the road for me at HRAI. I still hope to continue contributing in many ways to our thriving organization. I look forward to the ongoing challenge of working with skilled individuals, advancing the boundaries of our knowledge, and forging strong bonds across the many diverse sectors of our industry. Thank you again for this incredible honor.
Thank you very much, Dennis, for that message, and congratulations to David Weishen on your award. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature on your control panel. All questions will be addressed at the end of the annual general meeting. I would now like to introduce Frank Daisadou, the Director of Operations, to provide the financial review. Frank, if you could please turn on your video and mic right now, we'd greatly appreciate that. Over to you.
Thank you, Scott. Today I'll be providing a high-level overview of the audited financials of HRAI for the year ended June 30, 2020. Each of you should have received a copy of the audited financials with your AGM packages. Let's start with a review of the Statement of Operations, or more commonly known as the income statement. Although HRAI was hit with a difficult final quarter due to the impacts of COVID, The year had a number of noteworthy highlights. Some revenue highlights include membership revenue surpassing prior year by $95,000, or a 9% growth. This is a new membership revenue record for HRAI, representing 1,161 members. And although the year-end results for course registration revenue is down from prior year, HRAI's ability to quickly pivot to virtual training for all our certification courses in April 2020 allowed us to significantly reduce the impact of the cancellation of all in-class training. Another highlight for year-end June 2020 is the $134,000 in funding received from the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy, or CEWS, which helped to improve our year-end results. This revenue is reflected in miscellaneous income. In terms of significant impacts to the financial results for year-end June 2020, the greatest was the cancellation of CMPX 2020. Total revenue of $19,000 from CMPX came predominantly from interest income from the CMPX bank account, with $514,000 in sunk, non-recoverable, and non-transferable show costs. The net impact to HRAI from the cancellation of the show was $495,000 loss. Also impacted by COVID-19 were the sales of education materials, which became non-existent in the last quarter of the year, normally a period with the highest sales levels. This revenue was down over $42,000, or 8% from the prior year. And although not a result of COVID-19, another area impacted the year-end financials of June 2020 is the cancellation of the rebate programs offered by the ISO that occurred in May 2019. This represented $615,000 in contract revenues in prior year's results, which are not in this year's financials. In terms of expenses, a number of cost-cutting measures were quickly implemented when COVID hit in March. These initiatives mainly impacted staff salaries and benefits, but helped to offset the financial impacts caused by COVID. Other significant operational cost impacts, both positive and negative, were the investment in education research and development, as well as strategic HR initiatives, totaling $327,000, or $225,000 higher than prior year. A new contract with Impact Public Affairs for government and stakeholder relations support in BC and Quebec increased regional staffing costs by approximately $30,000, but provided HRAI with significantly improved representation in both these regions. Professional fees were lower by $46,000 from prior year, with reduced spending for legal, auditing, and human resources support. Divisional expenses were also down from last year by approximately $30,000, mainly in reduced travel and meeting costs in all divisions, with the increased use of virtual meetings and the elimination of travel costs in the last quarter. So the final results of the fiscal year ended June 2020 was a net loss of $635,000. Once again, the main impact of these results was the cancellation of the 2020 CMPX show, which contributed $495,000 to HRAI's year-end loss. That wraps up the summary of the statement of operations. We'll now move on to the statement of financial position, also known as the balance sheet. The greatest impact, once again, on this statement is the CMPX show. More specifically, the balances for both cash and short-term investments were significantly higher last year, with the 2020 show ramping up a year ago. By the year-end June 2020, 80% of the exhibitor fees were refunded, with only 20% of exhibitors choosing to hold their deposits for the 2022 show. These refunds caused a temporary bank indebtedness balance of $404,000 for CMPX. Accounts receivable also increased by $247,000 for year-end 2020 for HST recoverable from the CRA, brought about by the refunds provided to CMPX audit exhibitors. Under current liabilities, accounts payable and deferred revenue are both significantly reduced, once again due mainly to CMPX. Prior year figures in both these categories included unrealized or deferred revenues for the 2020 show, as well as significant increases in accounts payable for show expenses. 2020 unearned membership dues are lower than prior year end as a result of the delay in the annual membership renewal process. This process normally begins in early May of each year, but HRAI postponed the launch to early July, taking into consideration the financial impact COVID had on our current and potential new members. Despite this delay, existing members continue to receive support and services into the current membership year, even though no dues had been collected. In terms of net assets, internally restricted net assets increased year over year, with 491,000 transferred from unrestricted reserves for HRAI board approved funding of industry development, educational R&D, and HR strategic initiatives and projects, of which 327,000 of these funds were invested during the year. To summarize, although financially impacted by the cancellation of CMPX 2020 and COVID-19, HRAI continues to maintain well-managed assets, liabilities, and net assets with adequate funding and reserves, and has also implemented cost savings initiatives to help weather the current and long-term impacts of COVID-19. That concludes my review of the 2019-2020 audited financial results. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature on your control panel, and we will address them at the end of the meeting. With the review of the audited financials completed, we'll now move on to the approval of the auditors for the 2020 and 2021 fiscal year. I would now like to ask for a motion to approve the HRAI auditors, Welch LLP. The motion has been moved by Tara Smith and seconded by Joe Machinsky. We'll now open the voting. Please cast your votes in the next 20 seconds. We'll close the vote in 5 seconds. Voting is now closed. Thank you for your patience. We're tabulating the results and we'll get right back to you. Very quick. Motion has been passed. I would now like to welcome back Robert Flipsy to take us to the next item on the agenda, which is the election of the slate of directors. Robert, please turn on your mic and your video.
Thank you. I would like you to present you with the HRAI slate of directors and contractors slate of directors for 2021. I would ask a motion to approve the 2020-2021 HRAI Board of Directors and the Contractors Division Board of Directors as presented. This has been moved by John Krill and seconded by Dave Dirksen. We will now move on to the voting. Please cast your votes, and the voting will be open for 20 seconds. And the voting will be closed in 5 seconds. Thank you for your patience. We'll tabulate the results. And the motion is passed. Thank you, everyone. This ends the formal component of the AGM, and we will now move on to some updates. I now welcome Martin Looms, Vice President, Government and Stakeholder Relations, to update us on HRAI's government relations. Martin, please turn on your mic and your video.
Thank you, Rob. Hello, industry friends and colleagues. As has frequently been stated, one of the primary functions of HRAI is to be the voice of the HVACR industry in Canada. Well, let me just start by sharing with you that the job of being the voice became a little more complicated this year. The good news is that the adaptations we've made have put HRAI in a stronger position with governments and stakeholders across Canada than we've ever been in before. In spite of, and also because of the COVID-19 pandemic, this past year has been an extraordinarily productive year for HRAI in its government relations activities. In fact, there's far more to report on here than the available time will allow, so I'll invite you to look elsewhere for more detailed information on the issues and initiatives that matter to you and your company. Our weekly newsletter is a good place to start. Those of you who know me know I would love nothing more than to dive in deeply on these issues, but we don't have the time today to do that. For now, I'm going to focus on a high-level overview of our progress in some of the key strategic areas. In his address, Chair Dennis Kuzyna touched on our 4-point plan for strengthening our government relations work across the country. Let me just share with you now how we've progressed against that plan. First, HRAI is committed to build the resources needed to be an effective voice for the HVACR industry with governments at the federal, provincial, and municipal level. Building resources here means hiring the right people. and HRAI has made some very positive moves in the past year. Just over a year ago, HRAI hired Dorothy McCabe for its newly created role of Government Relations Specialist for Ontario. Focused exclusively on government policies, programs, and regulations in Ontario, this new position allowed HRAI to provide more dedicated attention to a lengthy list of regulatory concerns in the province, while diverting other resources to the needs of members in other parts of the country. HRAI has also identified the province of British Columbia as a priority for membership service and growth, and we wanted to lead the membership value proposition with a strong government relations emphasis. This is a province where there are notable policy directions being taken by governments, both provincial and municipal, that warrant attention from the industry. To assist in building the provincial presence that it needs, HRAI brought in Victoria Cross to be our BC representative. In its immediate GR staffing plans, HRAI had not originally included the province of Quebec as a priority, partly due to the relatively small number of members in the province, but also because of HRAI's traditional preference to work through or alongside existing provincial associations such as CTAF and CMMTQ. However, the flare-up of a single regulatory issue, namely a dramatically amended halocarbon phase-down regulation that had major repercussions for manufacturers, caused a rethinking of that decision. Through an extension of our contractual arrangement with IPA, HRAI picked up the services of Carlos Godoy, a seasoned and deeply connected GR specialist in the province based in Quebec City. These investments in new personnel have paid significant dividends as we have been able to pursue priority issues on behalf of members to a much deeper level. Dorothy, Victoria, and Carlos have become valued members of our government relations team and have better positioned HRAI to act on behalf of members to take on the many challenges that confront the industry. I should add here that HRAI continues to rely on the valuable services of Impact Public Affairs in Ottawa to create connections with relevant political leaders, to develop issues briefs, and to follow through on openings for further dialogue wherever they appear. The IPA team has become a helpful aid in extending HRAI's political reach in Ottawa. The second element of our GR plan was to develop the capability of the association to engage both with the administrative and political channels of government across the country. As we always have, we continue to engage with government bureaucrats at all levels on technical files that matter to the industry, and there's many of them. But now more than ever, we are also engaging with elected officials who set the direction for policies and legislation. And this past fiscal year, we took it up to another level. We've done days on Parliament Hill in Ottawa before, but as you may recall, though it seems a long time ago, 2019 was an election year, so we had to change gears a bit. In the run-up to the 2019 election, HRAI rolled out a grassroots candidate engagement program, which allowed members across the country to connect with local, federal election candidates from all parties. We prepared information kits with speaking points related to the key issues that HRAI has been working on at the federal level. About 30 members volunteered to participate. In addition, HRAI staff met on multiple occasions prior to the election campaign with policy platform advisors to each of the three major political party leaders, and we made recommendations that resonated with each of them. In the wake of the election, HRAI continued to engage with all the relevant newly appointed federal ministers, as well as opposition party leaders. Indeed, HRAI has started to have some significant influence within all of these departments, not only as a result of talking with senior bureaucrats, but also now with ministers and their advisors. Where it makes sense to do so, we also align our messaging with allied industry groups like HRAI, CIPH, MCA Canada, and others, and also sometimes under the umbrella of Efficiency Canada. In British Columbia, HRAI partnered with MCA BC, CIPH, and TECA in the first ever Day at the Legislature last December, where we met with several senior government ministers as well as a number of MLAs from the opposition. And similarly, in Ontario, just before the world changed, we held a successful Queen's Park Day on March 2nd. This level of political engagement is helping to create a higher level of awareness about the industry and the association than has ever been realized before. A third element of our GR plan has been to streamline the areas of focus for the association's government relations work to help guide our activities. In an industry as diverse and multifaceted as ours, this is a very difficult challenge. However, we have started to refine the focus of our efforts to a smaller set of priorities ones we believe have meaning for the great majority of members and that can be acted on effectively. While we continue to monitor and act on a host of regulatory files that affect the day-to-day businesses of members, we have also begun to apply more focused time and energy on proactive initiatives designed to set the agenda for political leaders. In the interest of time, for now, let me just tell you about our current top federal government relations priorities. First, we are working to ensure that the HVACR industry is well positioned to influence and benefit from the actions of the federal government towards meeting the climate change mitigation goals of the Pan-Canadian framework. Even with the shift in focus to addressing the pandemic, the federal government has not forgotten its commitment to meeting these targets, and our industry is in a strong position to advise on policy options and to act on them. Second, we are advocating for the implementation of a workforce training and adjustment fund for skilled tradespeople that will fund the process of industry retraining or learning new skills that will deliver advanced, energy-efficient, low-carbon solutions to the marketplace. Tied to this is the fundamental need to attract more people into the trades in general, but a big part of the focus now is on right skilling for the future. And third, we are applying pressure in all of our discussions with the federal and provincial governments to ensure that they remain committed to the principles of regulatory harmonization that were declared under the Canada-United States Regulatory Cooperation Council and the Canadian Free Trade Agreement. This covers efforts, the efforts here concern a range of regulations, including refrigerant, phase-down regulations, energy efficiency regulations, provincial trades and fuel safety certifications, building code, and more. I note here that under each of these three large or broadly stated priorities are a host of smaller issues and specific issues that we're working on at any given time. Finally, the fourth element of our plan is a goal to ensure that HRAI members are more fully engaged in the government relations work of the association. This is still very much a work in progress. Through our various issues-based committees, our Days on the Hill, and our grassroots engagement initiatives, HRAI has reached out and involved members in GR efforts to a greater extent than we have ever have in the past, but we can do much better. Over the next year, look forward to new tactics for engagement that we will be rolling out to involve members in hearing about, commenting on, and helping to direct us on the issues that are of immediate concern to your business. Stay tuned for more on this in the months ahead. I can't complete this report without touching on the elephant in the room, the one that's so tiny we can't even see it, but whose effects have transformed our lives so profoundly. As the news of a new virus and its implications started to come into focus in March of this year, HRAI had to adapt as every other business did. You've already heard about what HRAI had to do operationally to minimize the damages to the association. I'll talk here a bit about how the pandemic altered our government relations work in some very significant and ultimately positive ways. In the early days, as we were just getting our bearings, most of HRAI's work was focused on ensuring that industry members were fully up to speed on the rollout of government support programs for displaced workers and businesses affected by the downturn in business activities. Where necessary, we worked to get clarifications on business support programs to share with members via webinars and through almost daily updates to the COVID-19 Resource Center. When and where programs showed gaps, HRAI communicated industry concerns to government. These gaps were addressed and programs refined to meet industry needs. At the provincial level, once new safety protocols for customer contact were introduced, HRAI reached out to all provincial premiers, stating the case for including HVACR in the list of essential services. And for the most part, all provinces accepted that advice without resistance. To facilitate industry access to online training during the slowdown, HRAI secured financial support from NRCan for the delivery of HRAI's industry training. A similar arrangement was made with FortisBC, not only in support of HRAI's certification training, but also towards the development of a new course aimed at guiding contractors on how to engage their customers in meaningful conversations about ventilation and IAQ in context of their fears about COVID. While the heat of summer breathed life back into that part of the industry focused on the residential market, new concerns emerged over the summer months about the longer-term impacts of the virus on the reopening and occupation of commercial and institutional buildings of all types. Office buildings, schools, theaters, restaurants, and retail operations. Accordingly, HRAI laid plans for the creation of an advisory council on healthy, sustainable indoor environments in commercial and institutional buildings. A committee which will be comprised of industry representatives, stakeholders, academics, and health professionals. By accessing and reviewing the latest scientific and technical information, this advisory council will offer evidence-based thought leadership regarding the role of HVAC systems in the spread or containment of harmful pathogens like COVID-19. The council will document and communicate best practices for ventilation in commercial and institutional buildings and will disseminate information and advice to the public, building operators, business owners, and government decision makers. This council will be chaired by Joe Mashinsky of Arvin Air Systems and a member of your Contractors Division Board of Directors. Like many other business associations, HRAI has also turned its attention to engaging with government on how best to reignite the economy when conditions are right. For many in government, this means more stimulus spending. HRAI will be working hard to ensure that the design, timing, and rollout of stimulus programs will meet the needs of the HVACR industry. This will be a major focus in the months ahead. I'll just note here as an aside that a major announcement was made today about $2 billion of spending on building energy retrofits, and there's more to come. It's worth noting here that the elevated political engagement work we've done over the past several years has paid dividends during this time of crisis. Except for some new audiences, we didn't have to tell everyone who HRAI is and who we represent. This allowed us to get decisions and actions done in a more timely fashion. And as I noted at the beginning, the strange new circumstances over the past 6 months have dictated that we reach out to and talk with a number of new audiences with new messages using new engagement and communications tools, like the one we're using today. Our new audiences included Health Canada, various provincial ministries of health, ministries of long-term care, ministries of education, school boards, and associations representing school boards, teachers, restaurants, commercial building owners, and many others. Building on the status of our industry as an essential service, our messaging to all of these audiences has been some variation on our ability as an industry to deliver meaningful solutions for Canadians in relation to the deadly pandemic. Looking ahead, we'll be seeking to engage even more deeply with federal and provincial government plans for economic recovery. Building back better is the popular phrase in use now. We will be leveraging the new focus on commercial ventilation and indoor air quality to create opportunities for industry at all levels. In closing, I believe that HRAI's investments in the government and stakeholder relations area in upping its game will generate major returns in the years ahead as HVACR technologies become recognized more widely by governments and other decision makers for their importance in keeping Canadians comfortable, safe, and healthy while reducing energy use and carbon emissions. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Martin. I would now like to welcome Sandy McLeod, President and CEO of HRAI, to join me in moderating the questions. Sandy, please turn on your mic and your video now. We have a limited amount of time for questions, so if you haven't submitted your questions yet, please do so right now using the Q&A feature on your control panel.
Thank you, Scott. We'll give it a minute and see if we have any questions come in from the floor. I do remind everyone as well that we're going to have the town hall immediately following the formal AGM, so stay on. Okay, it doesn't look like we have any questions. I will keep my eye on the screen. If something pops up in the next minute or two, we'll pick it up in this section. We also have the opportunity to deal with it in the town hall. This concludes the annual contractors annual general meeting. I'd like to thank everybody for their participation, taking the time out today to do this. It's been a busy day for us here at HRAI, as we had 3 of these today. Started off with the manufacturers this morning, followed by the wholesalers, and now closing off with this event. I'd also like to thank the people here at HRAI who have made this all happen. Sadia and Loretta have been the people behind the scenes, making sure that everything works, and for the most part it has today. which is great. You always worry when you're relying on technology. I'd also like to thank our on-screen personalities today. So Dennis, Martin, Frank, Rob, and Scott for all of your efforts in making this all play out very well. And I'd also like to recognize this year's Merit Award winner, David Weisham, who's participating in the event today, and we heard from earlier. This event was supposed to be in Victoria and live. Clearly that didn't happen. I am pleased that we have been able to deal with all of the legal requirements that we need to deal with an AGM. You may have noticed a couple of minor differences from other AGMs. We did have spent some time with legal counsel in advance of the legal requirements for an AGM, and I did see a question pop up around financials. We presented the financials to the 3 divisions, and the HRAI board actually approved the financials, and we had a thumbs up from legal that would work. These days are definitely different, and we've maneuvered through today quite effectively. I do want to remind everybody that HRAI is here to serve you, our members. On the screen, you will see a number of our key people and contact information. No issue is too small or too large. If you want to have a chat, by all means, reach out to us. That wraps up this portion of the meeting. I'm going to turn it over to Scott to kick off the town hall.
Welcome to the HRAI.
Scott, I just see there was one quick question came in from Roger Groschmel about the $495,000 loss for the CMPX event. He was asking if this is the entirety of the loss or if there are any other losses coming forward. Roger, while it's a large number, I am pleased to say that's it. We did a pretty decent job of negotiating with all of the key stakeholders that we had contracts with, and we were able to bring the number down to what we originally thought could have been as high as $900,000, and we're able to get it down to $495,000, and that is a final number. Okay, Scott, back to you.
Okay, let's try this again. Welcome to the HRAI Contractors Division Town Hall. The Town Hall is a new event this year. It replaces the Democratic Assembly that some of you may have participated in the past. This Town Hall is meant to be less cumbersome and more flexible to the membership. Like the Democratic Assembly, its goal is to give contractor members a voice by allowing them to submit issues directly to HRAI, or, should they prefer, submit these issues via their local chapter or HRAI affiliated association. HRAI requested that submissions be brought forward at least 15 days prior to this meeting, and priority is to be given to these issues. We have allocated 1 hour for this meeting. Time permitting, submissions can be received electronically and discussed after we close discussion on the submitted topics. Just like the AGM, if you have questions or wish to comment on a submission, please do so using the Q&A feature found at the bottom of the Zoom window. The chat feature should be used for technical difficulties. As mentioned, we will review the submissions that we received in advance of the meeting first. I am pleased to report that we received 4 submissions this year. Our first submission comes from the Refrigeration Air Conditioning Contractors Association of British Columbia. It reads as following. RACA BC requests that HRAI engage with Technical Safety BC to explore the development of a compliance assistance program to be managed by HRAI that would help BC contractors to comply with boilers and pressure vessels, also known as BPV, regulations, modeled on a similar program that has served members in Ontario. I would now like to ask that Robert Flipsy, Chair of HRAI BC, to comment on this submission, and then we will ask Martin Limas, HRAI's Vice President, Government and Stakeholder Relations, to comment as well.
So yeah, I'll comment it. Here at, we have Technical Safety BC as our provincial people that look after boiler and pressure vessels and refrigeration systems. Back in 2013, Tony Scholl came over from Ontario, recognized that we were not enforcing the brazing standards as they dictated in CSA B52. We've had some ongoing issues in that we don't have actually brazing part of our journeyship apprenticeship training, so it's not part of the ITA, which is a provincial thing. Technical Safety BC doesn't allow an association to actually register a brazing procedure. Only individual contractors can do it. And then there's no really testing facilities out here to do the brazing. So they've been good in terms of holding off on it, but they are wanting to move forward. They've also brought up lately that they want to re-establish the quality control manuals we had as refrigeration contractors back in the 80s. And so a lot of the members are looking, how are we going to accomplish this? How do we get this as an industry set up so that all the contractors can use what the systems that are available and get on with their running their businesses rather than worrying about having, they've had some supermarkets that have been put almost to occupancies and then they've tried to fail them because the brazing standards didn't have all the certifications. So that's where we're at. And we've had ongoing discussions and like I said, we want HRAI to get involved to come up with a similar program to that we understand they have in Ontario, perhaps a little simpler.
I guess this is where you want me to chime in, Scott. I don't have a lot to add beyond what Rob has said, just that the program that has been running in Ontario now, I think since 2006, is pretty well established. For those of you outside of Ontario or who are not involved in the commercial business, may not be familiar with it, but really what it is we've helped commercial contractors via a partnership with HRAI by developing standard drawings and raising procedures, a quality manual that we allowed all of our members to subscribe to, or rather TSSA allowed them to adopt and subscribe to. We basically gave them the tools to come into compliance. Really the only difference before and after 2006, it really wasn't the regulations, it was enforcement of the regulations. And I think that's kind of what we're facing in British Columbia now, where the regulator in question is maybe looking to take a little more seriously enforcement of regulations that they have on the books. That's what happened with TSSA. And so they graciously, if we can say it that way, allowed HRAI and HRAI to submit on the behalf of members all of these drawings and procedures. And members who have signed on had a slightly easier path towards compliance. And so we've looked for a number of years. We talked with Rob and his group for, I'm going to say, over the last several years about whether there was an appetite to do this in British Columbia. And it looks like now maybe there's some consensus that they want to pursue this. So the next steps really would be sitting down with Technical Safety BC and talking with them about what that might look like from their perspective, how open they are to negotiating an arrangement like that with HRAI. So we welcome this submission, and unless there's any concerns from the members assembled here about pursuing it, I think there's every reason for us to consider it.
Okay, thank you, Martin. And not seeing any questions being submitted, I think I'll just remind the attendees today that one of the changes from the town hall or to the town hall from the Democratic Assembly is that we do not require motions for these submissions. All submissions are being taken under consideration. So as Martin said, that one has been welcomed by staff, and we will take that to the HRAI Contractors Division Board of Directors for further discussion. I'd now like to move on to the second submission. The second submission comes from the HRAI Atlantic chapter, and it reads, HRAI should develop a comprehensive plan for the development and implementation of a residential HVAC trade, tied into the existing refrigeration and air conditioning trade and building on the program model that exists in other provinces. to better serve the needs of the residential HVAC industry in the 4 Atlantic provinces. I would like to request that Eric Foran, Chair of the HRAI Atlantic chapter, to comment on this submission. And then we will also ask Martin to provide some comments. If I could ask Eric to turn on your microphone and camera. Last time I checked, he was on there. There he is.
I have access to the microphone, but you guys don't need to see me anyway. Just to add a few lines to that, as you may be aware, Martin Linus has been working a bit on this for us and has had a number of very productive discussions with the 4 Atlantic provinces about the prospects for residential HVAC trade designation. Certainly nested into the refrigeration and AC trade, and this will help to ensure that installers of heat pumps in homes are properly qualified. When Martin did roundtables a little bit more than a year ago around the Atlantic region, there was support for the idea from some members after some initial hesitation from a few. Now there is also support from the utilities and from the various ministries responsible for apprenticeship. With the shortage of skilled labor in this sector, with much of the installations being completed by unskilled, uncertified labor, we feel the requirement for Red Seal certification for residential installers that does not have all the requirements for the commercial and industrial sections of the current HVACR trade that certainly isn't required. The goal is to help the industry along with the benefit to end users who receive a better outcome for their installations. On behalf of HRAI Atlantic Chapter, I am requesting that HRAI work on this initiative. Thank you. Back to you, Scott.
Okay, Martin, we'll throw it over to you for if you have any additional comments.
Only that this is an initiative that will ultimately, hopefully, won't just be contained to the Atlantic provinces. The main driver for the interest in a trade unique to the residential sector in the Maritimes is the great number of residential heat pumps that are going in, and the utilities and others saying, you know, there's not enough contractors who are qualified to do this type of work. And it's really not work that refrigeration mechanics tend to focus on. So there's a bit of a training gap or a certification gap. And our feeling is that the residential air conditioning trade, as it exists in Ontario and Manitoba, is a good, appropriate fit for that. I'll only just add that, you know, Eric identified it as a Red Seal trade. It doesn't become a Red Seal trade, obviously, until it's recognized in, I think it's now 5 provinces it has to be recognized in with a more or less identical standard of training. So that is our ultimate goal. We'd like to see this program recognized in multiple provinces. We're, just for what it's worth, we're working on the same concept in British Columbia because they have the same challenge in that province. The governments and utilities there want to promote aggressively electrification through residential heat pumps. And they don't, in BC, they really don't have a training program at all that meets the needs of the industry. This might be that, the residential air conditioning program. So we're encouraging the BC government also to consider passing a regulation that would recognize this trade. If it's in existence in Ontario, Manitoba, British Columbia, and the 4 maritime provinces, I think we will have come a long way, not only to create an appropriate standard for that type of technology for our sector, but also to create opportunities for interprovincial migration of labor. And that's part of the goal. And I'll just say that there is a lot of work. We've been told by the people in Apprenticeship Nova Scotia that this is a long, protracted process to get a regulation in place. So there's going to be a lot of work associated with this file. Not sure how we'll achieve that. We'll figure that one out. But I think it's worth pursuing. And I guess the opportunity we have, in addition to having the support that Eric talked about within the industry locally, the ministries there through the Atlantic, I forget what the name of the organization that they've convened, it's all the directors of apprenticeship for the 4 maritime provinces. They have all enthusiastically embraced this idea. So they really want to see this happen. And I think they will maybe open doors for us and smooth the way a little bit to getting this done a little more quickly than otherwise would happen. So again, I think this is a great initiative for us to be pursuing.
Okay, thank you, Martin. Not seeing any questions regarding that submission. So again, no vote is required. We will take this forward to the HRAI Contractors Division Board of Directors for their consideration. I'd like to now move on to the third submission. The third submission comes to us from HRAI member company Arby's Industries. It reads as, HRAI should develop a plan of action to address concerns about inappropriate utility intrusions into the HVAC marketplace in Alberta, collaborating with other industry groups as necessary. I would now ask that Julie Burden, president of Arby's Industries, come forward by activating your mic and camera if so desired to provide background on this submission. And then once again, we'll ask Martin for some comments.
Thank you. I think we're good to go here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. So basically I'm speaking about ATCO Gas. ATCO Gas is the main gas provider here in Alberta, particularly southern Alberta. And ATCO Gas is also the entity that sold its retail assets to Direct Energy many years ago. And then ATCO Gas was dormant, I would say, in the HVAC industry, but more recently, they've started advertising HVAC products and services to their utility customer base. I'm a ATCO customer at home, and I've been receiving the advertisements through my utility bill and through email. I use ATCO as just the default, the regulated default provider, and then as well as my gas retailer. So the issue is, you know, competitive markets should be protected from the inappropriate exploitation of monopoly utility assets for commercial competitive advantage. ATCO Gas is very highly recognized, particularly in Calgary, for sure. It has a very positive reputation in the community, so much so that, you know, an ATCO technician's word is gospel. ATCO technicians, they do furnace checks for free. Often, you know, if there's severe weather, they will do repairs for free. So that's what I'm putting forth for consideration.
Scott, shall I just jump in then?
Yep, go ahead.
Just a little color commentary, I guess. We don't really know a lot about the tactics about how we might address this particular issue in Alberta at the moment. I can only say that we have had some success in the past in Alberta in the past addressing, I think it was with ATCO actually, probably close to 10 years ago. And at that time, we partnered with MCA Alberta, the Sheet Metal Contractors Association of Alberta, and a group of Lennox dealers, I guess, I think it was, in a kind of a consortium to address the concerns at that time. So we've had some success. We have not in any way, we haven't talked to the utility regulator at this stage. We're not really sure yet what the tactics are. So this is the mode we're in right now on this topic is very much exploratory. I appreciate Julie bringing this forward because I think it's a way of showing some interest and value from HRAI to the members in the province, possibly bringing more in who might have similar concerns. But at this point, I can't say that we have a plan of action or anything that we can lay out to address the issue. Just bringing it to our attention means we can actually dedicate some resources to pursuing a development plan. So thanks for bringing it forward, Julie.
So Martin, on this one, there is a question. I don't know if you want to take a look at it and see if it's something we want to answer.
Yes, it's a question about whether or not this is an action for the HVAC Coalition. The HVAC Coalition is an Ontario-based organization that has not traditionally ventured beyond Ontario. I will suggest, though, that the memory and the experience of the HVAC Coalition should probably be brought to bear to this discussion, as it has been in the past. But typically, in fact, when we took action the last time in Alberta, there was a fairly significant bill, I guess, to be paid, a legal bill to be paid, and it was handled by generating funds from within the province, which is, that's where the benefits flow, that's where the funds were generated. So that's generally the approach we take, is to focus within the province. We'll see if that's necessary in this case. But it just, whether or not we need to form a new form of coalition in the province, that's kind of what I was hinting at with, working with other associations. I think our voice is just that much stronger if we partner with SMCAA and NCA and others. But whether it's anything for the HVAC Coalition in Ontario, I tend to think not. But we do have someone from that group on the call. I think Roger's here, so he might have a thought about that. He's probably muted, of course, I think, at the time.
I think I just became unmuted, Martin.
There you are. There you are.
You're right. We've, the HVAC Coalition for over 20 years now in Ontario has not really ventured. I think we've provided some advice from time to time to groups who are facing this, but it sure seems like we're starting to run into a commonality of issues, many of which started here, and whether it's residential trade or whether it's utility incursion into the business, because as Julie said, they do enjoy a very good reputation for the most part, and they're reliable providers of energy to their rate base, and they do enjoy a tremendous advantage. And we're certainly, I would think, more than willing to support what they're doing in terms of our experience and providing advice. But I think that if they really want to tackle us to deal with what's happening in Alberta, as you said, Martin, to find some other folks that they can partner with, because clearly the regulators listen when there's a coordinated approach.
All right, thank you, Roger. Not seeing any other questions on this topic. Again, we will take this forward to the HRAI Contractors Division Board of Directors, and we will now move on to the fourth submission. The fourth submission comes from HRAI member company Atlas Care, and it reads as follows. HRAI should explore the possibility of a provincially legislated solution to concerns about municipally owned utilities engaging in business activities outside the scope of the utility business activities regulated by the Ontario Energy Board. I'm going to ask Roger, who just spoke, Roger Groshmal of Atlas Care, to provide background on this submission, and then we'll also ask Martin Limas to comment.
So am I still unmuted here?
Yeah, we can hear you, Roger. Go ahead.
Okay. Thanks, Scott. Yeah, it's not just Alberta. We've been fighting this battle of a level playing field with utilities for over 20 years in Ontario, and so it's not a problem that ever seems to go away. And particularly lately, it has been more with various electric utilities. We're now down to one major gas utility in Ontario, but there are some, I'm not sure exactly the number, but 75 or 80 electric utilities still operating in the province. And, it's like playing a game of whack-a-mole. Every time you knock one down, another one pops up somewhere else. And it has been all over the province. It's not just been a Toronto-centric thing. It's, quite frankly, it's typically been outside. And the latest, I believe now, is in the Sudbury North Bay area. And they're smart. They're learning as they go along. They certainly talk about the economic benefit they provide to their local municipalities. They contribute money to the coffers of the city, and they're starting to expand into commercial businesses, plumbing, electrical, and so what we're suggesting here is that we should, instead of fighting every one of these things on a one-off basis, which ties up a lot of resources and at a significant cost, we believe that trying to lobby a government that happens to be favoring a little bit towards small and medium-sized businesses, and that there might be some opportunities to, to encourage and promote some legislation to limit the ability of monopoly utilities to compete in this area against contractors. And so that's the basis of it, and it's a long shot, but it's certainly, we might have a bit of a window over the next couple of years to create an opportunity here.
Okay, Martin, any comments?
Well, that was very well stated, Roger. I think that pretty much captures it. The only thing I would add is that the challenge of dealing with the gas utilities in Ontario, Union Gas and Enbridge, for the most part, those challenges are behind us. And I think we have a very good, very positive relation now with the one amalgamated utility, Enbridge Gas, that, we do lots of constructive things together. We work side by side on many issues. And so those issues are behind us. But it wasn't a simple process of navigating from where we were to where we are now. And this problem of municipal electric utilities is a little more challenging. Roger used the term whack-a-mole, and that's kind of it. I mean, we have literally had issues pop up across the province, and sometimes they only last for 6 months. Sometimes it's a business that a utility like Brantford Hydro did it in Guelph, and Oakville Hydro, and there's quite a number that have gotten into this type of venture for all the reasons that Roger stated. And then we or HRAI or the HVAC Coalition or whomever gears, or maybe just a local group of contractors gears up to tackle it. The problem goes away because they sell the rental portfolio to somebody else, or they just lose their interest in the business. So this is really about trying to address the problem once and for all through a form of regulation. As Roger said, it is a long shot. Whether this fits within the HVAC Coalition or it's an HRAI initiative, I guess remains to be determined. That's something the board could discuss, how we tackle it. But it does seem like though it's a long shot, it's the right way to go. The phrase somebody used once is, we used to hear it a lot in the HVAC Coalition, there ought to be a law, right? People say there ought to be a law. Well, maybe that's the approach we have to go, is let's try to create a law with a government that we think might actually, I said earlier in my presentation, I made the point about making inroads with government through all the political channels. And I'm going to say we have developed a very strong and friendly relationship with a number of ministers in Ontario, including the Minister of Small Business and Red Tape Reduction. And I have a strong sense that bringing this forward, they might not be able to solve it for us, but I think they'll give us a very good listen on it. So it's worth a try. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Martin. Thank you, Roger. As mentioned, we'll take that one forward to the HRAI Contractors Board as well. Martin, we do have a question on this one, if you'd like to just review it.
Yes, the question about whether, larger competitors are not a concern for us necessarily. I mean, we have members large and small within HRAI. The issue around, from our perspective, it's really not primarily an issue of whether a company is large or small, as long as they're playing by the same rules as everybody else. One of the foundations of the HVAC Coalition, when they tackled this, Roger referred to the term level playing field. Utilities work in a different way. They have access to utility resources. They have immediate credibility with customers. In the case of a municipal utility, they have the backing of the city's name and that stability and understanding that people have. So it gives any company that works with that label and that connection a higher status relative to contractors operating competitively. Any large company that might buy these portfolios has to, take that business on as a business and compete with small contractors. Small contractors have certain competitive advantage. Large businesses have other advantages, but they all compete on a level playing field. So I don't know that we'd have a concern, Victor, about who purchases these assets if that happens. It's really, our focus has been on situations where the business is managed by, connected to, or run by in some fashion by a utility.
Okay, thank you for the question and thank you for that response, Martin. That wraps up the 4 submissions that we received in advance. I'd like to thank the chapters, affiliated associations with HRAI, and the individual member companies that submitted those. As mentioned, there's no need to vote on them. They will all be taken into consideration to the HRAI Contractors Division Board of Directors. As mentioned at the onset of the meeting, if we had time, we would open this up via the Q&A feature for other possible submissions and or discussion points. My clock indicates that we got through that in about 28 minutes, which is fantastic, and that leaves us some time for some Q&A, some questions, feedback. We'll leave that open for a minute, and if nothing comes forward, the next step would be to close the meeting. Again, use the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen. And as we're not seeing anything, I'd like to invite Sandy McLeod to activate his microphone to close this off.
Hi. I understand that I had some audio issues earlier. Is this better with the headset on?
Yep, that's better.
Perfect. Okay. Look, I'd like to thank everybody for participating. I think the 4 issues that have brought forward are reflective of the types of things that are on people's minds. This particular town hall format is designed to replace the former Democratic Assembly. It is meant to be less bureaucratic, more user-friendly. I hope we accomplish that today. As always, feel free to bring things forward. Does not have to be this type of formal setting. We are always looking to understand what's on your mind. As always, issues need to be prioritized, so they'll be taken back to the contractor board and figure out how these new submissions fit in with other active projects and how we will resource these issues. Enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you very much for participating both in the AGM and this town hall. Thank you.